Namaskar, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Achint. I have someone really special with me, Mr. Minhaj Merchant. I'm sure all of you who are watching this, have seen him on Twitter with his very sharp opinions. He's a commentator, of course. He's launched 10 magazines. He's the biographer of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi, the late industrialist Aditya Birla, Larsen and Toubro chairman A.M. Nayak. So, a lot of things under his belt. He's founded Sterling Newspapers, which has now been taken over by the Indian Express Group. But most of all, I appreciate sir's very, very sharp views on what's happening in India. Firstly, sir, namaskar. Thank you so much for your time and welcome to the show.
Namaskar, Ali. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, what do you think is happening in our country today? And why am I asking you such a broad question? Firstly, there is a sea change with regards to the economics. There's a sea change with regards to the position of India in the world, Indian politics. How do you see the country today from where we were, let's say, about 10 or 15 years ago, sir?
Yeah, Adi, if I may go back a little further, because
Sure.
I have to have the context. In 19, let's go back even further. In the 1700s, before colonization, the per capita income of Europe and India were virtually the same, broadly similar, at about adjusted value of about $600 per year. Then came British colonization. In the 190 years from 1757 to 1947, our GDP grew at virtually 0% a year. This is something which people don't understand, that when you grow at 0 to 0.25%, and these are figures that have been validated by Utsa Patnaik, my friend Sashi Tharoor, but much more importantly, Angus Madison, Broadberry and Gupta, at Warwick University. These have empirical evidence. 0% growth rate. Now, how many? We know the rule of 770, which means that if you grow at 2% a year for 35 years, then you will double your GDP. 35 years, 2%. How many cycles of 35 years are there in 200 years? Approximately 6. So our economy, if it had grown at 2% a year, which it had grown pre 1750 and grown despite socialism post 1947, if it grown at 2% in that 200-year period of British rule, there was 6 cycles of growth. So mathematically, 2 to the power of 6. You multiply 2 6 times over, and you come to a 64. 64x of what we were in 1947. In 1947, our GDP, again by PPP, purchasing power parity, was about $100. It would have been $6,400, which means you would have been a Latin American or even East European country. In 1947, at independence, instead of being a country with 80% extreme poverty, which is what Britain left India with. This doesn't mean that we are not to blame ourselves for what happened subsequent to when the British were made to leave. Our economic policy between 1947 and 1991, 44 years, was poor. It was socialistic. I think Nehru did a good job. Paradoxically, people blame Nehru, but no. Nehru inherited a broken economy. He realized what I've just said, that we grew at 0% a year. I'm not sure whether he knew it empirically, as we do now, but he knew that we had been terribly distressed by British rule, economic rule, because Daya Navroji had written it. He'd written a book on that, the un-British drain of India or whatever.
Yes.
Though it wasn't un-British at all, it was very, very British, that particular thing. Anyway, so Nehru knew that we were a broken economy, and therefore he devoted a lot of time and resources to the public sector. Steel, cement, where we had almost no capacity in 1947. So I don't blame Nehru so much. But after 1964, instead of going in the direction of the East Asian tigers, like Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, Thailand, and so on, what we did was to go into complete socialism, socialist economic policies, not only Indira Gandhi, but right through to 1991. So context, during British colonization, we were broken. From being 1-to-1 per capita parity with Europe, we went 1-to-100 in 1947. It was impoverishment on a grand scale. After 1947, Nehru did a little bit of what was right, but he did not enough really in terms of economic policy. And after him, till 1991, we had very poor economic policies. Now, I don't want to focus only on the last 10 or 12 years and say, oh, this is the Modi government thing and so on, because I'm not at all a Modi person that way. I've written in favor of some of his policies, and I've written against many of the Narendra Modi government's policies, economic, social, and so on and so forth. But where we are, to answer your question, now that I've got the context out of the way, where we are now in the past 10 or 15 years, and where we are likely to be, I think we're in a very good position. We've unfortunately had to handle in the past 5, 6 years, 3 or 4 black swan events like COVID, and then we had the Gaza war, the Ukraine war, the 50% trade tariff, and it just went on and on and on. And now we're confronted with the war in Iran. So, despite these 5 terrible black swan events, India's economy has been, I don't want to use that cliche, resilient, but I think India's economy and GDP has grown well. Now, we've got to look at two things. One is, what is our GDP today? It's about $4 trillion. On purchasing power parity, because I really believe we should move, as the IMF has done, and as the World Bank has done, and as a lot of other economists worldwide are doing, move to purchasing power parity. On PPP, our GDP is already the third largest in the world at approximately $17 trillion. Our per capita income is $12,000, 4 times $3,000, which is as the nominal rate. So we are in a good position, but we've got to do a lot of things, Adi, in order to build on what I would call a reasonable and stable situation. I'll come to the geopolitics of the Iran war, of what we've done or not done, and also of the policies of the Modi government, some good, some not so good. But in principle, I think we're in a good position. Don't forget that even geopolitically, the 3 major neighbors that we have, apart from Pakistan and China, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka, who looked to be totally out of kilter, as it were, 6 months ago, are all now favorably disposed towards India. Bangladesh, who wants to make up with India, and so does Nepal, and so does Sri Lanka, and they all have. So things in the neighborhood are improving. Our relations with America are poor, but Trump is going to be history after November. The congressional elections, the 3-seat majority that the Republicans have in a 435-seat House of Representatives is going to be extinguished. Now, what will that lead to? In November, control of the House is lost to Trump. That means he'll be impeached for the third time. Impeachment doesn't matter at all. It's completely nominal. But what will happen is it'll open him up for prosecution and even jail time, not only for war crimes, but for many other things that he's done after his term is over in January 2029. But after November, his entire agenda, that is the tariff agenda, the geopolitical agenda, the war agenda, the pro Pakistan, Munir, crypto agenda, all of that will be hobbled and to India's benefit. So November is not that far away, 6.5 months.
Yes.
And that is going to be the case. So I'll now stop here, go to the other points after you ask some more questions.
I want to basically look at one of the biggest points that India, uh, even now, is doing a lot. What I find is stops India is not the effort, it's the noise. And you call that out quite a bit using the term useful idiots. And I've seen you doing that multiple times. It's the noise that actually stops India. It's these noisemakers who, right now, oh, why are we standing with Israel? Oh, why are we not standing with Iran? Oh, why are we standing with Iran? Why are we not standing with Israel? There's just so much noise which hinders policy.
Yeah,
How do you put that into perspective?
yeah. I've talked a little bit about that in my book, Era of India, colon, from impoverished colony to the world's third largest economy, which was published by Penguin Random House just a couple of months ago. So we did a Lit Fest last Sunday, in fact, Max City Lit Fest. And this particular point was brought up. I was with TCA Raghavan, the former High Commissioner to Pakistan and Singapore. And the moderator was Prabal Das Gupta, the well-known linguist and best-selling author of the book on General Sundarji, which just came
Yes.
out 2 months ago. Again, Penguin Random House. So there were three of us. Prabal was the moderator. And in that, this point about noise was brought up, the negativity that we have. So I took an example of a half-full glass of water. There was a large audience in that at the NGMA, National Gallery for Modern Art. So I took the example of a half full glass of water, and I said most people who are sensible will say that's a half full glass of water. People who are negative, the noisemakers that you mentioned, will say, oh, it's half empty. But that's fine, we can live with that. But the real noisemakers in our country are the ultra negative sort who say it's not even half empty, it's completely empty. So that's the kind of delusional negativity that we suffer from. It's a crab mentality. Whenever India rises, there's this whole cabal of people, whether it's the opposition, and I can understand that, but whether it's activists, journalists, media organization of a particular bent of mind, and I use the word bent in quotes because they are bent in many ways, the kind of attitude they have to India is, oh, everything is rotten, everything is terrible. When they should be saying that, no, we're in a good position contextually from what we were in the 1700s, in 1947, in the past 10, 15, 20 years, after Narasimha Rao and Manmohan Singh's reforms, after Modi government's somewhat reforms, instead of saying that, okay, we've gone through a terrible black swan events, five events in the past 5 years. Despite that, we've done okay, but there is a lot more that we should be doing. And I've got that listed out of what we should be doing, which we can talk about. So we're not there at the finishing line yet, but we're certainly not at the starting line, nor are we in the middle. We are somewhere down 2/3 of the way to where we should be. So, yeah, I think the noisemaker that you mentioned, the ultra negative stuff, is really an indication of the Indian mentality of looking for, as I said, the empty glass of water when it's half full, and being almost like a colonial drain inspector, where you scavenge for problems. You try not to get solutions
Just dig
in any
problems.
situation, but you try and look for a problem within the solution. So if there's an accord on with China, if Wang Yi, the foreign minister of China, said that we want to do, as he called it, a pas de deux in French, which is a ballet of two between the dragon and the elephant. Instead of saying, yeah, good thing, but we have to be wary. The Chinese do certain things in a duplicitous way. We know that. But still, it's a good beginning. Instead of that, they say, oh, we've given away hundreds of square miles to China and things like that. So it creates confusion. It creates a poor morale in the army. And you're not even telling the truth. And it's not as if the government is saying Aksai Chin, Aksai Chin, Aksai Chin, and what happened with Nehru. It's not even that. The BJP could easily say that you've given away 100 times more in 1962. But the way the opposition and their little cabal of newspapers and online sites, the way they go on making the sort of demoralizing noise, luckily, many people, majority of people in India don't fall for that anymore, which is why the opposition doesn't win elections. Now, again, I want to clarify, I'm not pro BJP, nor am I pro Congress. However, I believe that the behavior of the Congress led opposition in the past few years under Rahul Gandhi has been particularly pernicious. It has been a negative. It's been damaging to our country. It's been damaging to our international standing. It has led NGOs and others abroad to make damaging uh, comments on our religious freedom without saying that, look, sure, we have a majoritarian trend that has happened in the past 5 or 10 years, but still Muslims, 230 or 240 million Muslims, live in more safety in India than they do in virtually every other Muslim majority country.
Yeah, especially
They don't
today.
say that. They don't say that. They say, oh, Muslims, Christians, all in danger. They don't say that this is the only country where Jews have come and got refuge, safe haven. They don't say Christians is that. Every single community, from Jews to Christians to Parsis, they all come to India historically and received safe haven. There's never been a riot between Christians and Hindus, for example. I mean, there have been one or two episodes in a huge country.
Yeah.
There's nothing. Only rights, Hindus and Muslims. Is there an agenda? Yes, there is. And I'll talk about that if necessary in the future, in this conversation. But yes, overall, I think the attitude of this cabal is extremely dangerous, damaging, but is not 1/10 as damaging as they think. Because in the end, that noise will be seen for what it is, noise.
Does the common man actually go for this noise, sir? In my opinion, and before you answer,
Yeah.
in my
Oh, yeah,
opinion,
I think
no.
so. I think the common man will be, to an extent, demoralized and be swung into a particular kind of um, uh, mood. So that's damaging. But I think on the ground we've got many problems. I mean, we all say quite correctly that our municipalities, our civic management is extremely poor. There's
Yep.
corruption at the state level. There's corruption at the municipality level. It's not just the potholes and bridges falling down or waste management or sanitation. But again, the Modi government hasn't followed through completely with the sort of excellent programs they had on sanitation, on many other issues,
Mm.
on smart cities, for example. They just haven't been able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. So, begun is half done. And I think, well begun in this particular case, smart cities, municipal civic governance, where mayors should be directly elected, not just nominal people.
And yeah.
I think we've got a lot of ground to cover.
So, what stops this particular thing, sir? That's one of the biggest questions. Is, and I personally feel it's the whole babudom and the establishment, as I call it, along with the judiciary, that kind of just puts brakes on everything. To get a
Yeah,
NGT
yeah,
approval for what do you call Andaman project, protests, some guy will put it on hold. It'll go to the Supreme Court.
yeah. No, you're
So
absolutely right. I've been writing about the Great Nicobar project, and it's extraordinary the lengths to which people will go. The
yeah,
Andamans, and Nicobar, they are like an aircraft carrier, unsinkable aircraft carrier. At the mouth of the Malacca Strait, it's literally 100 miles from the tip of Indonesia. It literally is it's at the choke point of the Malacca Strait, where 50% of China's trade passes through. So once the Hormuz situation is sorted out eventually, attention will shift to the Malacca Strait and the Great Nicobar project with its transshipment port, with its upgraded naval and military base and civilian base, and many other facilities is going to be a great asset for India. But what did we see? We saw an opposition leader who doesn't talk about any issue of consequence in 30, 40 years, Sonia Gandhi, writing an op-ed in a newspaper, a leading newspaper, denigrating the Great Nicobar project. And admirals like Raja Menon and so on, retired admiral, who I have great respect for, they all said that this is a project that will help India militarily, geopolitically, economically. It will in many ways put China on notice, and it's to argue that people and tribes are going to be affected, the environment is going to be, that's being looked after, but you cannot progress. Like America, for example, they built their entire economy on the African slave trade for 300 years. They built it on stolen Native American land. The Wild West, the gold rush, invasion of Mexico, Texas, California, Utah, Nevada, they were all part of Mexico. But
Yeah.
did the Americans even for a moment flinch? They attacked. And in the 1840s, 100 years virtually after independence, they invaded Mexico. And then later they invaded the Philippines and Puerto Rico and so on. So I'm saying we're the only country that has become the third largest economy in the world by PPP and the fourth or fifth largest by nominal exchange terms. We're the only country which hasn't become or is about to become a great power. And we'll talk about what GP means, great power means, from middle power to great power, the transition. The only country which has not engaged in the three C's, as I call them: conquest, coercion, and communism. China, communist; Britain and America and France, not only coercion, but
Conquest.
conquest.
Yeah.
So we're the only country which will rise to the top. And the Americans know this. Oh, the Indians who make the noise, they denigrate India. But the Americans sitting there, they all
We
know
all
where
know.
India is going to be in 25 years. They're not idiots. They might be brutal. I will come to that also, the brutality. But that brutality also um, is a consequence of their foresight. They know exactly what's going to happen. China, they didn't foresee, and they're regretting that. And now they're talking, oh, we don't want India to be another China. We don't want two Asian giants. One Asian giant, bad enough. So we are going to bring India down. We're going to always have a Pakistan or something else that will be a block to India. It's not a complete block, but which will slow
Mm.
India's rise, because America needs India more than India needs America in many ways. People don't realize that our country is so subjugated mentally. Our mindset is so colonially subjugated. No social confidence, no economic self confidence. So we believe that, oh, we need American technology. Of course we do. But America needs our markets. There is no other consumer market
Yep.
or tech market in the world which is a fraction of India. China is closed. No Google, no Facebook, no nothing. China will not let you in. And now people are getting out of China because, the secretive laws and so on. So apart from India, there's nothing. 600 million middle class consumers and growing at 10% a year, the consumer market. But the Americans know it and they are worried. So Indians will criticize India, but the Americans will actually be very happy about that. They will encourage the criticism within India. They'll hire NGOs. They'll hire all kinds of journalists. They'll send them to POK with the blessings of the ISI, as one particular Indian Express journalist went. And then they'll give glowing reports about POK. And the Americans will be laughing up their sleeves. Ah, the poor Indians, we've got them by the scruff of the neck. Look at their Mir Jafars, the modern Mir Jafars. There's so many of them. So we can stall India's rise. We don't want India to go down. No, no, no. We want India to be a subaltern. We want India to be subservient to us in a nice way, like Britain is today subservient to America and does what America tells it. America wants India to be their Britain of the 2030s and 2040s. But they don't realize that we are not Britain. No conquest, no coercion, and therefore no exploitation. We are the only country where we sleep on our own land, our own territory. Americans don't. They sleep on Native American land. Canadians don't. They sleep on Native American land. Australians don't. They sleep on Aboriginal land. New Zealanders don't. They sleep on Maori land. So India is unique in many ways, but we are self-denigrators.
Mhm.
We are self-crit. I like criticism. I
Mhm.
myself am a critic. But you criticize a glass for being half full and tell people that this is what we should do to make it completely full. You don't say it's half empty. And even if
Mhm.
you say that, that's okay. You can say that and we can say you're negative, but that's not completely crazy. But if you say it's totally empty and criticize that, that's not criticism. That's being a demagogue. Yeah.
That's true. What I notice is that India's position in the world is a bit different than what any other rising power would be. Now, how should we capitalize on something like that? We've
Yeah.
got a kind of weird America right now. It'll bounce back, but currently in a very weird position. You've got a decline-ish sort of a China, which with a lot of internal issues. You've got a re-rising Russia and no one else. So there's just the
Yeah.
four of us. How do you see that
Yeah,
game?
yeah. I think that's a good point. You see, um, I really believe for a fact that Western civilization is on the decline. Europe is sclerotic. Their economics is completely shot to hell. They don't have a growth rate of more than 1% a year because their colonial revenue has run out.
Yeah.
All of them, as my book says, and as other books have said in the past, um, they they used to, in Britain in particular, and France as well, and Holland, the Netherlands to an extent, used to balance their books with the treasuries of 40 or 50 colonies, including the case of Britain, India, resource-rich India. Now, after the end of colonization, Britain is now uh, has to balance its books only with one treasury, and the British treasury, which is why they're in poor shape. So I think overall, if you look at the four power centers that you mentioned, Russia, America, India, and China, look at them. America, Europe first is gone for the reason I've just outlined in the past minute. As far as America is concerned, the progeny of Europe, they are going to face a huge problem in 2050 because America is now fractured. There's this 40% MAGA base, which is basically the redneck Southern base, which is the Confederates who fought in the Civil War to keep slavery, to maintain slavery. And the North, tried to do away with slavery. And the North won eventually. But the South has never forgiven them, which is why what we see today, Confederate flags and so on. And it's the South which is Trump's base. It's racist, bigoted, undereducated, uh, and extremely basic in their knowledge. So, Western civilization is fractured in America. Plus, America is heading for a demographic time bomb. Not the kind of time bomb we'll come to China in a minute that China faces, but a different kind of time bomb. It's a racial time bomb. For the first time since the Europeans invaded America in the 1600s as colonist settlers and killed off the Native Americans, partly with smallpox and partly with guns. For the first time in 400 years, the population of America in the year 2050, which is one generation away, will actually be less. The white population of America will be below 50% for the first time in 400 years, below 50%. And when you're below 50% and going down gradually to 48, 45, 40%, the whole discourse changes. And um, the lack of education, the gun shootings in America, the dysfunctional families, the inequality. People talk about inequality in India, and economists like Arvind Subramanian and Raghuram Rajan and all of them, and I'm taking names because I have no problem taking names of these so-called economists. They go on talking about inequality, and they use Thomas Piketty, and they climb on the shoulders of certain other economists, foreign economists, and say, oh, India, inequality, bad, GDP figures, 2% higher than they should be. But they don't realize the inequality in America is even worse. much worse. The black underclass, the Hispanic underclass, which has been kept in slavery for 300 years, they don't even realize. I mean, Americans know it, and they're very glad that the rest of the world doesn't realize all this. It's up to 1965, a black American couldn't vote with complete freedom. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, 64 and 65. And this was 2, 3 years after the era of John F. Kennedy, when it was supposed to be the age of Aquarius, liberated, liberal America. No, blacks not allowed to vote. There was segregation as per law. By law, America was a segregated country. So, the chickens will come home to roost, and America in 2050 will be and is indeed a declining power. And what we see in Trump, and I'm very glad we're seeing this in Trump, because he reflects what America really is. Until now, we thought, oh, it's George W. Bush, kindly man putting his arm around Manmohan Singh, civil nuclear deal, very nice. All the GCCs from America coming here, and America, the American dream, remittances, and America is a lovely country. But Trump has shown us exactly how unlovely America is, because 52% of Americans voted for him. And even now, with all the destruction in Iran, 39 to 40% of the people still support him. So he has exposed America for what it is. China. Now, people say China, great, yeah. Robotics. When the German Chancellor Merz went to China, to Beijing, he was given this whole robotic experience, humanoids and robots. And Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, had uh, actually put up for him an exhibition of martial arts between two robots, two humanoids. And much to Chancellor Merz's mirth, which he tried to hide, they were bursting out laughing. One of the so-called humanoid boxers fell flat on his back before the bout could start. So that's the level of technology. People forget that Japan has had robots in their factories in Nissan and Toyota for 50 years. It's not new. Even today, 70% of robots are manufactured in Japan, not in China. Okay, China, the demographics, awful. Millions of people are falling off the cliff. The Chinese women do not want babies. They can't afford them. Consumption is at a very low point in China because it's overproduced, it's over-manufactured. And because of oversupply and lack of demand, for the other reason, because 90% of the wealth of Chinese, not 90, maybe 70% of the wealth of Chinese is in real estate, and real estate has become half in value in the past 5 years. So the Chinese don't have money, and therefore there's no consumption, but there's oversupply. And that's why you have 1.2 trade surplus, 1.2 trillion trade surplus. That's not a good sign, as people think. It's a bad sign. It means they have too much inventory, which they can't do anything with. So they have to send it over to Indonesia and other parts of East Asia and India at low discounted prices.
Yeah.
Which is why China's got that particular problem of a weakening economy. Okay, yeah. So China demographic decline, America Western civilizational decline, Europe sclerotic, and that leaves us with Russia, which has been shown up in Ukraine. So it is no longer a great power in the making. India, unique position, very poor country, no coercion, communism, or conquest, but still the only potential great power which will rise from poverty. And we've talked about where the poverty emerged from contextually. So India will be unique in the three C's, but it will also be unique in rising as a poor great power. But rise it will. And what we have to do on health, education, reforms, corruption, municipality governance, and judicial reforms, all of that needs to be done in the next 5 or 10 years so that we can fulfill our tryst with destiny.